Noah stood in silence, staring at the smoldering remains of what was once his empire. Thick smoke still curled into the sky, mixing with the distant glow of the setting sun. For miles, all he could see were the skeletal remains of buildings and machinery, twisted and broken. The land that had supported over 1,000 workers, once lush and fertile, now looked like a barren wasteland. Just days ago, Noah had been a man of wealth and power. His farm was not only a source of pride, but also a symbol of his family's legacy. He had inherited the land from his parents, who had worked hard to build it into a flourishing enterprise. The fields were filled with crops, the barn stocked with livestock, and the machinery kept the operation running smoothly. But all that was gone now, destroyed by a relentless wildfire that swept through the region without warning. The fire had come quickly, too fast for anyone to stop. It cleared everything in its path, leaving no time to save the farm or its precious contents. Noah had watched helplessly as the flames consumed his buildings, his equipment, and worst of all, the documents proving his ownership of the land. Without them, he had no way to fight back. Now, as he stood alone amidst the wreckage, the weight of his loss pressed down on him. His empire had crumbled, and he didn't know what to do next. The days following the fire were a blur for Noah. He moved through the remnants of his life like a ghost, numb to the world around him. Workers who had once worked across the farm were gone, the sounds of machinery and life replaced by an eerie, unnatural silence. The farm that had been the lifeblood of his family for generations was now just a graveyard of memories. Noah walked the blackened earth where crops used to grow, the soil still warm from the fire's fury. He had nothing left but his thoughts, and even those were filled with confusion and helplessness. His worst fears came true when government officials arrived on the scene. Men in suits with somber expressions approached him as he stood in the ashes. At first, Noah assumed they were there to help, perhaps to offer support or assess the damage. But their intentions soon became clear. One of the officials stepped forward, holding a clipboard and speaking with a cold, formal tone. "We regret the loss of your property," the man said, not meeting Noah's eyes. However, under the regional development plans, this land has long been designated for the expansion of a resort area. Given the recent events, the government will be moving forward with these plans. Noah's heart sank. A resort. This is my land. My family has owned this farm for generations. You can't just take it. The official adjusted his glasses and sighed. I understand your frustration, but the documentation we have shows that this area was always intended for development. It appears your family had been using the land unofficially, and with the fire destroying all the property and relevant records, there's no proof of your claim. Noah felt as if the ground beneath him had crumbled, just like the farm itself. That's not true, he stammered. We had papers, contracts, deeds, everything. They were just lost in the fire. You have to believe me. The official remained unmoved. Without the original documents, we have no legal reason to delay the resort project. You may appeal the decision, of course, but I must warn you that our records are quite clear. Noah's mind raced. How could this be happening? The land had always been his family's pride and joy, the foundation of their wealth and status. His grandparents had told him stories of how they had struggled to build the farm from nothing, how they had poured their hearts and souls into every field and barn. His parents had carried on the legacy, expanding the farm into the massive operation it had become under his stewardship. And now, in a matter of days, it was all gone, reduced to ashes and bureaucratic paperwork. With his proof of ownership destroyed in the fire, Noah had no legal ground to stand on. The government's claim was ironclad, bolstered by records that dated back before he was born. According to them, the land was always intended for resort development, and his family's presence had been nothing more than an extended lease, one that had now expired. Without the documents, Noah couldn't fight back. Over the next few days, letters from the government arrived, each one colder and more final than the last. They were taking possession of the land. It was no longer his. Noah's heart broke as he realized he had lost not only his livelihood, but also his family's legacy. The wealth he had worked so hard to build was gone, swallowed by the fire and now by the government's cold, impersonal machinery. He tried to fight it, reaching out to lawyers and local officials, but without proof, no one could help. His friends and business contacts, who had once been so eager to associate with him, now avoided his calls. The farm's workers had moved on, finding employment elsewhere. Noah was alone, helpless against a force much larger than himself. His empire had not just burned in the flames, it had been taken from him piece by piece. Each day, as he walked through the charred remains of his land, the weight of his loss grew heavier. He had not only lost his wealth, but also his identity, his purpose. His family's legacy, which he had always assumed would continue for generations, was gone, leaving him in a pit of despair. Noah didn't know how to rebuild, or if he even could. Noah felt the weight of his isolation more deeply with each passing day. In the beginning, he had tried to reach out to friends and business associates, hoping for support, or even just a kind word. He thought, surely, the people who had shared in his success would stand by him in his darkest hour. But the responses he received were cold, distant. Some didn't return his calls at all. Others offered polite excuses, saying they were busy or couldn't get involved. His once close circle of friends seemed to vanish as quickly as the fire had consumed his farm. Amidst the ashes of his once great life, Noah barely noticed the one person who had remained by his side. Jennifer, his maid. She had always been in the background, quietly going about her duties, someone Noah had never truly seen beyond the tasks she performed. In his wealth and busy days, he had taken her presence for granted, paying little attention to her. But Jennifer never left. Even as everyone else deserted him, she stayed, cleaning up the debris from his burned home, preparing simple meals, and ensuring he had some sense of normalcy. Day after day, Jennifer worked in silence, her hands steady, her heart full of quiet strength. She didn't ask for anything, nor did she expect recognition. Her loyalty was constant, but Noah, lost in his grief, didn't truly see her. He was too consumed by his own despair, too focused on what he had lost to notice the one thing he hadn't, the steadfast presence of someone who still cared. One evening, after yet another long, silent day, Jennifer quietly approached Noah. This time, she didn't just set down a plate of food and walk away. Instead, she sat across from him, her eyes full of understanding. She saw his pain and knew that he needed more than just food or a clean house. He needed someone to believe in him. "Mr. Noah," she began softly, "I know you've lost a lot, and it feels like the world has turned its back on you. But there's still hope. You're not alone. We can get through this." Her words cut through the fog of his despair. For the first time, Noah looked at Jennifer, truly seeing her, realizing that she was more than just his maid. She was his ally, his lifeline. If I were Noah, I would take a moment to reflect on Jennifer's unwavering loyalty. It's in our darkest moments that we see who truly stands by us. Would you do the same? If this story has touched you, make sure to subscribe to follow Noah's journey, hit the notification bell, and share this story with someone who needs to know that even in the worst times, there's always hope. One afternoon, as Noah sat in the remains of his charred home, feeling lost and defeated, Jennifer approached him with a determined look. She had been quietly helping him for days, but this time, there was something different about her presence. She sat down across from him, and after a brief moment of silence, she spoke. "Mr. Noah," she began, "I've been thinking about your situation, and I believe there's a way you could fight for your land." Noah looked at her, puzzled. He hadn't thought there was any hope left. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice heavy with doubt. Jennifer took a deep breath. "The county head. He's a man with a lot of influence in the local government. I used to work for him years ago, before I came to your family. We weren't close, but I know that he values fairness. If you could talk to him and explain your situation, He might be able to help. He's someone who listens if you present a strong case." Noah raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "The county head. Why would he care about my situation?" Jennifer leaned forward slightly. "Because I know he's a man who wants to do what's right. And right now, the government is acting too fast. They're taking advantage of what happened with the fire. You need someone in your corner who understands the system, and I believe he could be that person." At first, Noah wasn't sure. He had no connections with the county head and had never even met the man. But as Jennifer spoke, a small flicker of hope stirred inside him. He realized he had nothing left to lose. "All right," Noah said slowly, nodding. "Let's give it a try." Jennifer smiled, her quiet confidence giving him a sense of comfort. Together, they began to plan the next steps. With Jennifer's help, Noah managed to secure a meeting with the county head. On the day of the meeting, he felt nervous. He had never met this man before and wasn't sure what to expect. As he walked into the county head's office, his palms were sweaty and his heart raced. The office was large, with shelves full of books and a wide desk where the county head sat, reviewing some papers. He looked up when Noah entered and gave a nod of acknowledgement. "Mr. Noah, I've heard about your situation," the county head said, gesturing for Noah to sit. Noah sat down, unsure of how to begin. He cleared his throat and started explaining everything: the wildfire, the loss of his farm, and how the government had quickly claimed the land for their resort project. As Noah spoke, the county head listened carefully, occasionally nodding. Noah was surprised by the man's calm and understanding demeanor. After Noah finished, the county head leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "I'm sorry for the loss you've experienced," he said. "It sounds like you've been through a lot. While the government has indeed claimed the land for development, I'll be honest with you, sometimes the records are not always clear, especially when family estates are involved. If your family has truly owned this land for generations, there might be something we can do." Noah felt a small surge of hope. The county head continued, "I'll personally look into the records. It's possible there are documents that were overlooked or that the government moved too quickly in claiming the land. I can't promise anything yet, but I'll do my best to see if there's a legitimate way for you to reclaim your land." Noah thanked him, grateful for the chance to fight back. For the first time since the fire, he felt a spark of hope. After the meeting with the county head, Noah felt a renewed sense of hope. For the first time since the fire, it seemed like there was a chance he could get his family's land back. He was still nervous about the outcome, but knowing that someone in power was looking into the situation gave him a bit of peace. As Noah sat in his home later that evening, Jennifer approached him again, her quiet confidence as steady as ever. She could see that he was feeling more hopeful and wanted to keep that momentum going. "Mr. Noah," she began gently, "I've been thinking. There's something else we could do to help your case." Noah looked at her, curious. "What's that?" "People need to hear your story," Jennifer said. "The public doesn't know what really happened. All they see is the government moving in to build a resort. But if we share your side of things, how the fire destroyed everything, how you lost your family's legacy, and how quickly the government stepped in, people might start to see things differently. We can reach out to the newspapers." Noah was taken aback. "The newspapers? Do you think anyone will care?" Jennifer nodded. "People care about fairness, and they care about families losing what they've worked for. If we tell your story, the public might start to sympathize with you. It could put pressure on the government to rethink their decision." At first, Noah wasn't sure if this would work. He had never been one to seek attention or stir up trouble. But Jennifer's words made sense. If enough people knew the truth, it might make a difference. The next day, with Jennifer's help, Noah contacted a local journalist. He shared everything: how his family had owned the land for generations, how the fire had wiped out not only his property, but also all the proof of his ownership, and how the government had swooped in, claiming the land for a resort project. A few days later, the story appeared in the newspapers, complete with photos of the burnt land and a detailed account of Noah's loss. The article painted a picture of a man who had lost everything and was now fighting against a government takeover. It wasn't just about the land. It was about a family's legacy, a story that struck a chord with readers. As the article spread, public sympathy began to grow. People in the community, and even beyond, started to speak out in support of Noah. Local opinion shifted in his favor, and the pressure on the government increased. For the first time, Noah felt like he wasn't alone in his fight. The community was rallying behind him, and it was all thanks to Jennifer's simple yet brilliant idea. This was another step forward, and Noah couldn't help but feel grateful to Jennifer for guiding him through the storm. Weeks passed after Noah's story appeared in the newspapers. The public's support continued to grow, and the pressure on the government was increasing day by day. People were outraged by the idea that a family's legacy could be taken away so easily, and they began to question the government's actions. It wasn't just Noah fighting anymore. He now had the support of the community behind him. At the same time, the county head had been quietly investigating the land records, just as he had promised. Noah had been waiting anxiously, hoping for any sign of good news. One afternoon, he received a call from the county head's office. There had been a breakthrough. When Noah arrived at the county head's office, the man greeted him with a serious but hopeful expression. "Mr. Noah, we've uncovered some important information," he said. "The records show that your family did, in fact, own this land legally for generations. There's no question about it. Your grandparents and parents had rightful ownership of this property, and it should have never been in doubt." Noah's heart skipped a beat. Does that mean the government can't take the land for the resort? The county head sighed. It's complicated. The government still has their plans for the resort, and they've already invested resources into the project. But this new evidence changes things. They can no longer claim that your family never owned the land. This puts you in a much stronger position. After a brief pause, the county head continued. The government is willing to offer a compromise. They're prepared to return a portion of the land to you, under certain conditions. It won't be the entire farm, but it's a significant part of what your family built. It's a way to honor your family's legacy, while still allowing the resort project to move forward. Noah sat back, feeling a rush of emotions. It wasn't exactly what he had hoped for. He wanted the whole farm back, the way it had been before. But after everything that had happened, this offer was more than he ever expected. It was a chance to rebuild, to keep part of his family's land, and to move forward with hope for the future. "Thank you," Noah said quietly, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you for fighting for me." The county head nodded. "You fought for yourself, Mr. Noah. And you had people behind you who believed in your story." As Noah left the office, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. He still had a long road ahead of him, but for the first time since the fire, he could see a path forward. And it was all thanks to Jennifer's wisdom and the support of those who had stood by him when he needed them most. With a portion of his land returned and the public now firmly on his side, Noah felt a new sense of purpose and hope. He had spent weeks fighting to get his life back on track, but as he reflected on everything that had happened, he realized one thing very clearly. He would never have made it this far without Jennifer. Jennifer, who had always worked quietly in the background, had been his rock. She had stayed by his side when everyone else had walked away. Her ideas, reaching out to the county head and using the newspapers to tell this story, were the turning points that had changed his fate. Without her wisdom and loyalty, Noah knew he might have lost everything forever. One evening, Noah asked Jennifer to sit down with him. They were outside, looking over what remained of the farm. "Jennifer," Noah began, his voice soft but full of emotion, "I've been thinking about everything you've done for me. I don't know where I would be without you." Jennifer, ever humble, shook her head. "I was just doing what I could, Mr. Noah. You've been through so much, and I wanted to help." "No," Noah said, shaking his head. "You did more than just help. You saved me. You gave me the ideas and the strength I didn't know I had. You're the reason I have a chance to rebuild, and for that, I can never thank you enough." Jennifer smiled, but Noah could see the surprise in her eyes as he continued. "You've been more than a maid, Jennifer. You're my partner. You always were, even if I didn't see it before. I want to make it official." Jennifer blinked, unsure of what he meant. "Your partner?" "Yes," Noah said, his voice firm. "I want you to be my partner in this, in rebuilding the farm, in any future ventures. You're smart, and you've proven that you have the vision to make things happen. I don't want you to just work for me. I want us to work together, side by side." Jennifer was speechless for a moment, clearly touched by Noah's words. She had never expected such a gesture from the man who had once barely noticed her presence. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at Noah, realizing that their relationship had changed forever. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "I've never been more sure of anything," Noah replied, smiling warmly. "You're my partner, Jennifer. We'll rebuild this farm together, and whatever comes next, we'll face it together." With those words, a new chapter began. Noah had not only recovered part of his family's land, but he had also gained a true partner, someone who had stood by him through the worst and was now ready to help him rebuild his future. With the land partially restored and a renewed sense of hope, Noah set out to rebuild his life and his business. He took Jennifer's advice to heart, securing a loan using his reclaimed property as collateral. It was a modest start, but it was a beginning, a chance to build something new from the ashes of his past. Together, they began to lay the foundations for a new enterprise. They worked side by side, their partnership growing stronger with each passing day. Noah found himself deeply appreciating Jennifer's insights, her dedication, and her quiet strength. The dynamic between them shifted from one of employer and employee to something more profound. Jennifer had become his cornerstone, the person he relied on the most. As they worked together, Noah felt a new affection growing. It was more than just admiration. It was a deep-seated appreciation and respect that went beyond professional boundaries. Jennifer's presence had become a source of comfort and inspiration for him. The feelings Noah harbored were warm and genuine, hinting at the possibility of something richer in the future. Their new enterprise slowly took shape, reflecting their hard work and shared vision. Each milestone they achieved was a testament to their partnership, and Noah couldn't help but feel that their bond was evolving into something beautiful. As Noah looked toward the future, he saw a new beginning not just for himself, but for his relationship with Jennifer. Their journey had brought them together in ways he had never expected, and he was excited about the possibilities ahead. If you enjoyed this story and would like to see more, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Share this tale of resilience and partnership with your friends, and click the notification button so you never miss an update. Let us know where you're watching from, and if this story has touched you. Your support means the world to us.